Salut, bonjour, bienvenue au Roadshow DevSecOps en France. Je m'appelle Brian Vermeer et je suis ici avec mon collègue Matt Jarvis. Malheureusement, je ne parlais pas français, donc je continuais en anglais. So basically what I said was, hey folks, welcome to the Roadshow and we're now in France. I'm here together with my co-host, Matt Jarvis, and unfortunately, I do not speak French that well. So let's continue in English to keep everybody on this roadshow. First of all, I want a big shout out to the Cloud Native Paris community. Smaïne is here and he will talk about that later. And he's one of the speakers, of course. We have two great talks today, and we have not two, but four speakers. So shortly, for the first talk, we have Smaïne Kahlouch and Mathieu Gillot. They're both working for KMTX, and they will talk about CI/CD pipelines using gitops and Flux v2. After that, we have a second talk by Tanguy Combe and Ismael Hommani. Hopefully I pronounce it correctly, from Rescale in France, and they will talk about policy as code. But before that, Matt and I have a few things to settle because this is our second day of the roadshow. And first, Matt, where are you?
I am in Mont Saint-Michel, which is in Brittany or Normandy. I think we weren't quite sure this morning. Somewhere in northern France. I've been there, so I should know this really. But
well, I'm in Normandy too. This is the statue La Brave, I hope, or the Braves in English, which is of course dedicated to Omaha Beach, and well, we all know what happened back then. So we're both at the same height. Let me see if I can't see. I'm sorry, but every day
it's sunny where I am as well. So.
I know. They're like the weather can be different, like from square meter to square meter. Yeah, absolutely. Every day, what we do is we have this thing, Matt and I, that we do a challenge. Who knows the best? Who knows that like has the best knowledge about the place that we are? Yesterday, we were in Matt's home country. Well, home country, the UK. So he asked me 5 questions about the UK. However, today we are not either in the UK or the Netherlands, where I'm normally based. We are in a place that we normally are and based in. So what we will do now, we will ask each other 3 questions about France and see who has the best knowledge about fun, obscure facts. Because I've been talking way too much, I will give the word to Matt to ask the first question to me, and
I'm gonna go first. Okay.
And I will do the second. We will do it. You one, I will do one, and so forth and so forth. Right?
I'm scared now, Brian.
All right.
Anyway, right. So my first question, which city was the birthplace of the bouillabaisse, a fish soup?
Lille. I'm just making something up.
No, Marseille. Marseille.
Makes sense.
I love a bouillabaisse.
Okay. France is it's basically the biggest country of the European Union. And I will gonna bash you with that like European Union every single day, but still. Because France is that big, how many time zones does France have? I will give you some options. 1, 2, 8, or 12.
Time zone. So I'm gonna say 2.
That is unfortunately incorrect. It is 12 because France has a lot of territory overseas that are all part of the country France under the same flag. So they have a lot of départements et territoires d'outre-mer.
That's a good one, Brian. That's a good one.
So that is 12 time zones, and it is the country with the most time zones in the world, basically.
Okay. Right.
So
game
counter me.
Okay, this is an easy one. This should be an easy one. Which French duo is known for the songs Around the World and Get Lucky? Come on, Brian.
Man, it's on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, I'm not doing the look. I'm blackout.
Daft Punk.
Daft Punk,
Come
of course.
On.
All right. Okay.
Are we all on 0 this round?
Yeah, we're now on 0.
This is terrible.
Yeah. Okay, let me give you an easy one, and you probably can guess it. in France, you have different kinds of bread, and the baguette is one. And not everything is a baguette. Just be sure of that. But why shouldn't you put a baguette upside down on a table?
Is this a trick question?
Nope.
Why should you not put a baguette upside down on a table? I don't know. Why should you put a baguette upside down?
It's superstition. They say, and I looked it up. They say on many websites, like, it brings bad luck.
Right. Okay. Okay. So still all on the zeros, right? So my final question: what is the difference between a croque madame and a croque monsieur?
I know this one. A croque monsieur is a warm or grilled sandwich with ham and cheese, but the croque madame, there is a fried or poached egg on top of it.
There you go. There you go. One to Brian.
Okay. The France mainland, I will go back to the time zone one because this one is so funny. It used to be in the same time zone as you folks in London. But who was responsible for making it basically GMT +1? Was that historical figures? Not very popular, though. The German Adolf Hitler, Napoleon Bonaparte, or Emmanuel Macron?
Bonaparte.
Unfortunately, that is wrong. Napoleon Bonaparte was already deceased when time zones were actually invented. That's one. But it were the Germans. During World War II, France was under German occupation, and the Germans decided that to make everything easy, that the French should be in the same time zone as the Germans, so things would be less complicated. And so basically, we can say that France is still in wartime.
So, well, apologies to all my French friends and colleagues. I have scored abysmally on this quiz about France.
Well, I scored just 1 point because, well, I know what a croque madame is. That's the only thing I know.
Right.
Anyway,
let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on to the first talk. So,
Brian,
yes,
I think we have someone with us from the Cloud Native community that wants to quickly tell everyone what's going on in Paris and France before we kick off.
Let's do that. Let's do that first. So we have the Cloud Native community in Paris and France, and we've got now I'm good. Stanila.
Yes, Stan is okay. Stan is okay.
Stani, go ahead. Tell us about what is going on in the Cloud Native community in France.
Yes, should I share my screen or not?
Yeah, cool. If you've got something, yeah.
Small slide for the event. Up. So let's go. So we are really happy to be there and to be part of the CNCF community. So I won't go into the details of what is the CNCF, but more about what is CNCF in Paris, in France. So we are like an organization, non-profit organization led by 4 people. Smaïne is part of this organization, and we are in this field for like the past 5 years. Like we started talking about mostly Kubernetes, to be honest. Like 5 years ago, it was like only Kubernetes. Everyone was talking about how to start deploying Kubernetes in production and so on. And we supported the community. We support by hosting a lot of talk, a lot of, I would say, small conferences about all the projects around the CNCF communities. So we went through multiple talk about Prometheus, about FluentD, out all the advanced use case of Kubernetes, and our plan is to continue doing it, fostering the word about CNCF product, CNCF initiative, I would say. So like I think it's basic of a meetup community, but the only thing we would like to do differently, I would say, is to know more about our community, like the French community. So that's why we introduced two months ago a kind of radar, but only for the French area, like yes, that's why we initiate this initiative, and to be more precise about the talk we will organize in the upcoming months, upcoming years. So that's why we would like to know more about our community in France, and provide them talks and conferences that suit their need. So that's why we are asking how the French companies to fill in the survey about the radar. So that's it. It's
awesome.
Really short, and this is a sum up about what the CNCF Paris community looks like. And yeah, if you have any question, obviously feel free.
Thank you.
All right.
Folks.
All right,
That's
thank
brilliant.
you, Stanis. Let's first of all, can you please put the link also in the chat so people can click it?
I think
That's
it's
always
there.
nice.
Sam's just done it.
Sam just did it. Great, Sam. Thank you so much.
So personally vouch for Cloud Native Paris. They're an awesome community. I've spoken for you folks a couple of times. I look forward to coming in person once COVID is over.
Absolutely. So let's, without further ado, let's get to session one with Smaïne and Mathieu. Take it away. Share your screen. The floor, the virtual floor is yours.
So I'm Smaïne. I'm basically a SRE/DevOps/sysadmin for about more than 15 years. And I started to work on Kubernetes and cloud native technologies since about the very beginning in 2015. I'm also the CNCF ambassador in France. And as Stanislas said, I'm a co-organizer of the CNCF Paris community.
And I'm Mathieu. I'm working as a backend developer for 15 years now, mainly in startups around web development. Over the time, I specialize in high traffic web applications optimization and also breaking monolith to ensure smooth transition to service-oriented architecture when it fits the needs. So first, we'll provide a bit of context around the company to explain the challenges we want to solve with this migration. So KMTX was founded based on an observation. It's that AdTech world is an unnecessary and ineffective mess. You have a lot of actors, a lot of middlemen, and it ends with a very complex ecosystem, and the entrance ticket is very expensive on purpose. So the solution, we want to address this problem, and the solution we want to provide is a simple unified platform that helps marketers to reach the customers on the open web as simply as the solution on the closed web allows it today, like on Google or Facebook ads. So we are currently releasing a SaaS solution named by KMTX to provide this simple interface for the open web. So some numbers, we are aiming to multiply the size of the tech team by 3 in the coming year and the traffic by 10. So it brings some technical and organizational challenges. And yes, we plan to onboard a lot of clients. We're switching to a SaaS solution. So growing environment brings challenges, and first of all, it brings organizational challenges. We have to keep them in mind because it will have a huge impact on requirements we have to address during our mission. So the first organizational challenge for me is people scaling, because it changes everything. We want to address it with efficient onboarding, straightforward communication. And the very important point here is to have a clear definition of the ownership. Also, we will need to have challenging points as defining common processes, best practices, mainly through complete documentation, and also very important, ensuring the engagement of the whole tech team from day one and at every step of the migration. Also, we already have some technical challenges to face because the tech world is pretty demanding, high traffic. So today we handle 100K requests per second. We plan to reach the million in the coming year. And also low latency because we have to respond below 10 milliseconds for real-time bidding. All the data decisions for real-time are data-driven. All the decisions are data-driven, and it's based on user segmentation and also on user predicted behavior, which means huge data sets, billion of data points. So we had to split the stack in like real-time stack, which has to respond really fast, and a more async task like enriching all the data used by the real-time stack. And one very important point here is cost efficiency. We absolutely don't want our costs to rise quicker than our traffic.
So given this context of fast-growing company and given the challenges that Mathieu just talked about, we created a few weeks ago a new team named Scale, and we are part of it, Mathieu and I. And this team is basically responsible of these following items. We are building a brand new platform, a new infrastructure, and as Mathieu said, we want to keep control on it while we are growing. We need to ensure that we keep the same level of performance or better because we have strong requirements on performances. And obviously, we want it to be highly available and reliable. We are also responsible of the whole security of the company from the development to the running platform. And today we will focus on the release engineering and the whole developer experience.
So let's start with the current status and why we did want to focus on that first. We're pretty happy with our application themselves because it fits the needs, it meets the current performance requirements, it meets the business expectations. But regarding how we deploy these applications, we have an issue today because it's a lot of manual operation. Like our so-called CD process today is a set of bash scripts that the developer has to run locally from his local environment, relying on local dependencies. It's error-prone, and the time to production of the features is growing badly. So the release starts to be a rock in our shoes today, and this rock will become bigger and bigger with people scaling of the company, which is a big challenge. So we define this topic as our top one priority. So first of all, we are migrating our hosting solution from Bitbucket to GitHub. GitHub is a well-known and more feature-rich tool. Also, it's easier for onboarding, so it solves one of our challenges.
And regarding infrastructure, we chose Kubernetes, obviously, as it is a standard in the container orchestration area. But we won't get into the details in the infrastructure because it can be a whole presentation itself. We chose it because it brings best practices such as a declarative API, self-healing, high availability, and so on. And a better onboarding the same way as GitHub.
Regarding the CI, we are moving from Jenkins to GitHub Actions. First of all, because now our code is on GitHub. And GitHub Actions is very connected to mobile device.
Sorry.
GitHub Actions is declarative and very simple. Also, it's easy to configure, easier than Jenkins. And as it's a current standard on the market, we can take benefits from GitHub Actions from the community that are provided and maintained by the community.
And as Mathieu said, we are currently using a collection of bash scripts, and we are not really confident with that. So we will talk about a new tool we introduced recently that is called Flux.
So here comes a big picture of what we will present today. I won't go into details now because we will do that at the very end of the presentation. But the left part is the developer experience part, ensuring all the code we deliver meets our quality standards. And the right part is the continuous delivery using Flux CD. So let's start with the CI. The target is pretty simple. We want to build our application safely and fastly. So where to start? The first step of a migration, when you have an existing application and you want to put in place a new quality standard framework, it's always tempting to modify the application at the same time to fit all the quality requirements from day one. That's a trap. Never do that because it's the best way to break things. So we advocate for not updating the application, just migrate it as is. Take it as a black box and set the quality requirement based on the current implementation. Then, once your quality framework is in place, you can progressively raise the bar, increasing code coverage for tests, decreasing the complexity, or increasing the security requirements, for instance, and you can do it safely because all the framework is already in place. So regarding the interface, we use a specification called Gather. The aim is to provide a unified interface to operate applications. It relies on makefiles, and the basic idea behind it is to use consistent naming to launch common actions. So the application becomes CI agnostic. From the view of CI agents, it will operate all the applications the same way, no matter what the technology used is, and no matter what the tools are used within the application. So every makefile target is bound to Docker Compose to minimize local dependencies. We use Docker Compose because that's a tool we already master, and it allows to have only one dependency, that is the container runtime. So on the developer laptop or on a CI worker, the only dependency to run all the tasks to interact with the application will be Docker and Docker Compose. Also, it abstracts the tools we use under the hood. Like in this example, for instance, it's a format checker from a CI pipeline for a Python library using a black library. So if we want to run the exact same operation for a Go project, for instance, it will still be named check format, but maybe it will use another tools behind the hood. But for a CI, it will always run make check format, no matter what the project is. And regarding the CI pipeline itself, so it's implemented in GitHub Actions. It simply runs the makefile targets exactly the same way the developer does on his local environment. And in addition, we take benefit from GitHub Actions from the community. We used some to link Dockerfile or Helm charts, and also to detect vulnerabilities in the Docker image we built. This pipeline is triggered anytime a developer opens a pull request.
So now that we have a CI pipeline, and if everything is green, we want to deliver the application with confidence. And as we said, the current solution based on bash scripts is not really we're not really happy with that. So our main target is to declare everything in Git. We use the gitops principle. The gitops pattern is well known and is used commonly in the cloud native landscape. And the basic idea is to declare the desired state of the application in GitHub, and that way we benefit from GitHub features such as versioning, pull requests, reviews, and if everything is reviewed and merged into a given branch, we want it to be applied automatically without any manual operation. And then if we have a drift in the difference between the declared state and the running application, we want to be alerted. And we want to be alerted if something goes wrong during the reconciliation process. So for that, we use the GitOps engine. There are several options, and we chose Flux. Flux is a CNCF project from Weaveworks, and Weaveworks is actually the company behind the word GitOps itself. Here you have the big picture that you can find in the official documentation. And Flux is basically built upon a project named GitOps Toolkit. And GitOps Toolkit is a collection of controllers and their CRDs, custom resource definitions. So the first one we will talk about is the customized controller. And the customized controller reads a custom resource named customization, not to be confused with the tool customized that we use with Kubernetes. It relies on it, but you can also declare plain YAML. And the customization is actually a pointer to a local directory in the GitOps repository, where you put all the manifests you want to be applied to the target cluster. And it comes with a health checks feature so that you can see what happens if something fails. The notification controller deals with events. It deals with incoming events, such as a webhook, for example, a GitHub webhook to trigger immediately the reconciliation process. And it can send a notification using Slack, Sentry, Microsoft Teams. There are plenty of options. You can have a look to the documentation if you want to get into the details. The image automation controller is actually, there are actually two controllers in this process. The first one is the reflector. The reflector is in charge of fetching the latest image tag based on the configuration, on your configuration. Here we configure the timestamp, so it can fetch the latest one. And the automation controller is in charge of applying the change. It will actually commit the change to the GitOps repository. Then you have the source controller, and it is pretty simple. You declare the source of all the artifacts you want to use to deploy applications. You can use YAML or customized file from GitHub repositories, from S3 buckets. You can use Helm chart repositories. Here you have an example of Helm chart repositories. And last but not least, the Helm controller. The Helm controller is really important for us because we at KMTX we are heavy users of Helm, and it makes use of a CRD that comes with the GitOps toolkit, and it is named Helm release. And it is pretty simple. You reference source. Here it's a Helm repository for Cilium, and you provide the values to inject that deploy time. Then, when you have all configured, you may want to have information about what is configured. Flux comes with a CLI. It is pretty handy. You can see the summary of the resources. Here you have an example with the customization. And we can see that they are all ready, meaning that during the reconciliation process, there are no errors. You can see the Helm releases, and you can, if you want to do a manual change, you don't want it to be overwritten. So from time to time, you want maybe to pause a reconciliation process in order to make the change, do your test, and then resume the reconciliation. And if you want to have deeper look, you can see the logs with the Flux logs command. And you recently, there is a new argument named trace that allows you to see how Flux manages a given resource for all kinds of resources. Here we can see that the CDN daemon set has been deployed with a Helm release named CDN, which makes use of a Helm chart CDN, which comes from a Helm repository CDN. And there is an experimental web UI, so use it with caution, but it is pretty useful if you want to have a quick look of what happens. Apart of that, we use another controller, which is a completely distinct project than Flux. It is a project developed by Hommani that allows us to keep the target, to declare everything in Git, to have 100% of our resources declared in Git. And SealedSecrets generates its own certificates. It keeps the private key into the cluster, and then you can share the public key to the users so that they can generate a custom resource named SealedSecret, and they can safely commit it in their repositories.
And as we said at the beginning, in a growing organization, the clear definition of the ownership is key. So to address that challenge, we did the choice to store the Helm charts in application repository because we want to empower the developers in the full understanding of the platform. A developer should not just write code, but also owns all the scope around it as how it is deployed and how it is orchestrated. So the developers, in addition to writing the code, they also hand-to-hand with members of the scale team, define minimal compute resources for their applications, define monitoring and alerting configuration, generate their SealedSecrets, define the auto-scaling configuration, and many more. So to sum up, to put everything we presented together, we end up with our complete release workflow. We really wanted it to stick to KISS principles. So the CI part addressed the challenge of the developer experience. So when a developer submits a pull request, it triggers the CI pipeline. It will do all the quality checks based on the standard defined for this specific project. If it's green, another developer can do the review. And when they merge the pull request, it will trigger the release pipeline that is building the Docker image and pushing it to the registry. Then Flux will deploy the resource on the target Kubernetes cluster or clusters using the Docker image and the Helm chart.
That said, there are a lot of things left to do. Actually, we're just at the beginning of our cloud native journey. But the first building block we wanted to provide is a smooth and reliable developer experience and delivery pipeline. That's why the first thing that we did at the very beginning was to do training sessions. And these are, now that we have all these building blocks, we are ready for the upcoming challenges here. And this is just an example. Now, and if we want you to remember two key points. The first thing is that, as we said earlier, we need to engage all the company. So when we arrived with Mathieu, the first thing that we did is training session before starting anything. We wanted to ensure that everybody has a good understanding of Kubernetes, for example, and all the cloud native technologies around. So we started with training sessions, and then we gathered feedback from them in order to make decisions. And these decisions are reviewed all together in a regular basis in order to ensure that we still fit the needs.
And another point you can bring home is never modify your application while you are migrating it, because it's a very good way to phase the migration. Just put the quality framework in place and then take benefit from it to do all your modifications installing it.
And if you liked what we said, and if you want to join an exciting technical environment, we have a lot of open positions. And we maybe the questions will come later, but thank you all for listening.
Awesome, thank you, folks. That was great, Smaïne and Mathieu. Thank you for that, folks. We're going to come back to questions at the end, if that's okay. If you folks would like to stop sharing now, and we can get our second set of awesome speakers on the go, and then we'll wrap up with questions at the end. So our next speakers, Tanguy and Ismael from We Scale France. So over to you guys.
Okay, so first of all, we would like to thank Snyk and the CNCF for letting us, Tanguy and I, present you the topic on the cloud and compliance. So cloud nowadays is a very cool place for a developer. You could push and deploy your application in a matter of minutes to create your own business. From an enterprise point of view, it's also a place where you can foster innovation and make your business grow. But if we take a wider image, cloud is also a very dangerous place. Where is located my data? Is it encrypted? Does my software allow the right communication? And so on. So we have to give proof to our customers that we took the necessary steps, the necessary guarantee to make our application safe. And compliance is all about risk management. It will tell your customers that you took effectively the right decision, the right steps to bring security to the application you deployed on the cloud. It is usually motivated by government or organization, but it could also be internally driven, for instance, for HR or environment policies. And compliance is a set of rules, and as a set of rules, it could be seen as an obstacle for your business and innovation. But really, you should think compliance, you should embrace it as being part of your business and as being part of your application. And we know that we have winning recipes when it comes to the software lifecycle development. We know about the DevOps mindset. We know about the CI/CD process. And the idea would be to aggregate compliance inside those processes so that in the end, we can talk about compliance as code, compliance as a service, and beginning to shape compliance governance. In the cloud, compliance is no new topic at all. In fact, we already have cloud providers, major one, that provides you with a shared responsibility model. In short, it tells you that all the hardware, the storage, the compute, and the software they provide you with are compliant toward, for instance, PCI DSS and RGPD. But it does not prevent you from implementing yourself the compliancy. You still have to tell where your data is created, if it's encrypted, how. Do you enable some communications between some networks and so on? So you are still in charge to implement the compliancy, but the cloud provider will tell you that for the hardware part or the software part, the managed services, you don't have to worry about that. And the first question that comes is, okay, as a user of this cloud platform, what is the right strategy to implement this compliance? we would say that the right strategy is to bake this compliance into the platform so that each time you deploy an application, the software would be constrained by the rules you baked into the platform. Consequently, the software would be compliant. And in this schema, we see that all the rules are described as code inside the source repository and take also advantage of the CI/CD pipeline to deploy those rules on the cloud platform. And we begin to understand why we talked about compliance as code and also compliance as a service, because those platforms offers you some APIs and any audit becomes very easy. We don't have to provide with countless hours of useless meeting. Now the audit is autonomous. We can check the repo to see what are the policies. We can see the history of developments that implies the compliancy rules. And we can also check on the cloud platform that everything is indeed fine regarding the compliance rules. So a second question would be, okay, I know the goal, but how do I achieve that goal? And we think that the compliance on the cloud could be seen as a 3 layers model. The first layer, IAM, identity and access management, is platform provided and allows you to give trust to agents, being physical one or service accounts. And to that trust, you will give some control. You will add some controls. And this control is given by policies. And the first kind of policies, the passive platform policies, is provided by the cloud platform and allows you to tell rules such as, I forbid the fact that two networks communicate with one another. I forbid the fact that one bucket spawn in this specific region. The problem is those policies or existing, those available policies are very related to the considered cloud platform, being AWS, GCP, or Azure. And sometimes you do want to be agnostic from them and also to be less technical in the way you create the policy, meaning that you want your policy to be really business related. And that way we have this third layer, reactive platform policies, that will allow you to react to some events, for instance, the creation of an EC2 instances, and call the right logic, the logic, very related, tightly coupled to your business and your compliance. So let's take a very simple and basic example. Let's say I am a stakeholder and I want that every Friday evening to shut down all my dev instances and start them on Monday morning so that I can spare some money and be more environmental friendly. If I take the example of the GCP, I would create a cloud scheduler and associate to it two cloud functions, one for starting the instance and the second one for shutting down the instance. Of course, we would use Terraform so that we can use infrastructure as code, and also CI/CD to deploy the logic inside both functions. The problem here is we had to think about what kind of services to choose to do or to react to the events, to our business events. And maybe some other team would have think differently. And also we had to think about the very logic to push inside those cloud functions. And like I said, some teams may have done differently or the same, so it's a duplication. And we also have other companies that have the same issue. So we think there is a better way. And imagine we can define through a domain-specific language, so declaratively, we can define our business policies and translate it through a framework into technical elements that would be started, up and running, ready to implement your policy. That's the point of Cloud Custodian, which is an open source project, and that allows you to define through YAML file and domain-specific language your policies with your own specific terms that you will mix with the keyword that Cloud Custodian understands. So in a way, it's a kind of bridge between your business thinking and the technical side of the cloud platform. And Cloud Custodian would, for instance, for the last example we chose, would also create under the hood a cloud scheduler and a cloud functions to do the starting and shutting job. But from your perspective, from a developer perspective, the only thing you had to do was to provide Cloud Custodian with a YAML file, which is declarative and not imperative. So like we said, Cloud Custodian is an open source tool, which is hosted by the CNCF, of course, and that targets the AWS, Azure, and GCP cloud. It is basically a set of policies that you would describe as a YAML file, and each policies will bear a name, an action. So once again, we have a domain-specific language that allows you to define what kind of action you want to take, the kind of resources you would act on, and of course, filters to act only on the right resources. So a question that comes is, how do I use day-to-day Cloud Custodian? Cloud Custodian comes with 3 different flavors in terms of action. We have the local run. Basically, those are synchronous call to the API that, according to the YAML file you provided, will call the right entities on the cloud platform to enforce policies. But what is interesting are the 2 following modes: event triggers and periodic runs. Because using those modes, you will be able to tell Cloud Custodian through the YAML file to create the right resources according to the targeted cloud platform in order to feed on audit log and react on those different events. The reaction you would put, the action you would put, clearly depends on your different compliance you want to bake into the cloud platform, and will let you create step by step, brick by brick, your compliancy inside the cloud platform. And of course, it's not the only mode. What is interesting, if we go back, imagine a triggering event that would trigger, for instance, let's say the creation of an EC2 instance, that would trigger a Lambda function that would be in charge to tag this instance so that another policy would be listening to this tag and be able to act on these new EC2 instances in order to make some check. So what I'm telling there is that we can really chain policies so that the way we describe our compliancy is very not siloed, but could be really reused and mutualized. And from now, when you know that you can chain policies, the only limit is your imagination. So Tanguy, can you help us to imagine more useful use case?
Yes, thank you very much. It will be less smoother than with Smaïne and Mathieu, because we're not at the same place. But can you see my screen now? I think it's good.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so like Ismael said, we can imagine a chain of multiple policies to enable your compliance on the cloud. Here we have an example. Our business logic or business need is that all EC2 instances need to have 3 tags. We can see them here: the owner, the cost center, and the project. And here in the policy, so the first thing to understand is that Cloud Custodian, once deployed on your platform, will be triggered. Here it's a 2-minute rate, then filters all the EC2 instances and select those who has not the tag. After that, we had set the action mark for up to stop the instance in 1 day. And then you can chain it with the second one. The second one will have another filter to check that all the marked for up instances, here notice the difference, all the marked for up instances does not have the tag again. And so we do the first step of the action, which is stopping the instance. We can then imagine a third event, a third step. The third step is to terminate the instance in delay of 3 days. What we want to show here is that it's really easy to understand what is the business logic beside the policy description. Now we can use now that you know how to use Cloud Custodian, we have to we can enable the big thing of this project. The big thing is to bring compliance and auditability to everyone's eyes. So using gitops, we can have the versioning of all of policy and the status of all our platforms. There is also several things that you can do with Cloud Custodian, like FinOps, like Ismael said, starting and stopping instances at night or during the weekend. You can also do reactive things, react to an event. For instance, when you have a CloudTrail event, you can react on a malicious action and send an alert, maybe using Slack, Splunk, or Datadog. There is lots of integration available in the documentation. And you can also bring your own and bake your own compliance rules, like enforcing things. Maybe, I don't know, if you want to enforce that all the EC2 instances or all the S3 bucket are encrypted at rest, it's really easy to do it. We can make here a parallel with OPA Gatekeeper in Kubernetes. Now, when we put it all together, I would like to make a little demo. I have here, okay, you can see my screen again. Great, I have here a little policy. And this policy, once deployed, will react on a disable ABS encryption by default event. And so this event is a global setting for AWS on a specific region that enforces that all ABS volumes are encrypted at rest. The action when we catch the event is to set back the encryption. So let's do it. You can see my file here. Okay. Now I will deploy it. So the command to deploy it is custodian run alert.yaml, and then you have to specify your AWS profile and the region you target. Yes. Credentials. Okay. Custodian says provisioning policy, and it's here a Lambda function. Now, on AWS console, I try to find my function. Okay, this one is the one modified 15 minutes ago. I can see it, and Cloud Custodian just provisioned for me an event bridge event trigger for a new Lambda function. Now, I am a very bad user, and this user will disable the setting we were talking about. I'll try to do it. So, EBS encryption. Take a bit of time. So the setting is enabled here, and I will try to disable it. Great. Great or not, because now my new EBS volume will not be encrypted at rest. But if I refresh the page, I can see that Cloud Custodian has been there. Cloud Custodian has had re-enabled the setting. And you can see on the screen, it's really easy to see what the policy and what is the logic behind what the custodian will perform on your platform. Now to go a bit further, here you can have the documentation of Cloud Custodian and also the GitHub repository. In fact, the code is really simple to understand, so I really advise to dive in. And we have few articles about this. Sorry for you English folks. It's just in French. Now, who are we? Ismael, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, very unusual way to present yourself at the end, but because of the lack of time, we wanted to take advantage of our presentation first. So I am a cloud native developer at WeScale. I basically take missions on the cloud, focusing on cloud native paradigm, security, reliability, scalability. So yeah.
Yes, and me, Tanguy. I'm a cloud builder at WeScale, and I am now with 2 years of experience using Cloud Custodian in banking cloud systems. So I will be really happy to talk with anyone about this. If you have any question, thank you for your attention. I don't know, Matt or Brian, if we have some time for those questions.
Absolutely, we do have time. We have a bunch of questions in for both your talk, but also for the talk before you. So, because you're already here, let me start with a question for your talk, and that's basically a question from your co-speaker in the other room. Can we get the examples you showed somewhere? They're really interesting.
Yes, of course. We have at WeScale an open source repository. With like I can call it a wrapper with using Python and Terraform to wrap custodian rules within any AWS console, AWS accounts, and also the IAM rules needed for the run.
So, and maybe Tanguy, you can share your screen so you can go on the URL. So that in the recording, everybody is at the same page.
Yes, you can do it. What you can do as well is post the URL in the chat, and we will make sure that with the recording that the URL is posted in the.
Okay.
Yes. Can you do it?
Better.
Can you do it, Ismael, or I can do it if you want.
Yeah. In the meantime, I will post it in the chat. I go to my.
Amazing. So let's go back to the previous talk by Smaïne and Mathieu. One of the first questions that came in by Anthony, out of curiosity, any reasons that you chose for Flux over Argo CD?
I'll take that one. I'll start by saying that both are fine to do gitops, because I tried both. Here at KMTX, we did the choice to Flux because we maybe we are mistaken, but we find that it is modular, so you can have a look to each of the components, and it is really straightforward to know with OGDCRD what controller does what things. The source, the controller manage the sources. With OCD, I had the maybe a wrong feeling, but I had the feeling that it was abstract. It is a good thing for developers that don't want to get into the complexity of the components, but we show the flux. And we are happy with that choice today. Maybe tomorrow we'll switch to Argo CD, but no.
Makes sense. Matt, any questions from your side?
Yeah, so we've got a few more in the chat here again for Smaïne and Mathieu. So I think you actually answered this in your talk, but let's just confirm that. How do you organize your GitHub repos for your Helm charts and manifest files? Are they stored in the same repo as your app code, or have you separated the repos, and why did you organize it like that? I thought that I heard you stored it all in the same repos, but I could have heard that wrong.
Yes, so I will take this one. As a first step, we decided to put all the applicative code and all the definition of how it is orchestrated and deployed at the same place. So everything is the application repo, Helm charts, application code, and we will add monitoring configuration and alerting configuration, everything at the same place, so the developers can have a look at everything concerning the application at the same place.
Great. Brian, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah. Was there any reluctance from people to migrate from ECS to EKS?
I will take this one also. Yes, as Smaïne said, we started with some trainings about giving a good understanding on what Kubernetes offers in terms of features. And you can do almost the same thing in ECS if you want, but manually. I think we explained, like we gave as many information as people did understand. Okay, it will be easier to take benefit from Kubernetes native API features instead of continuing implementing things manually in ECS. And also it was in the big picture of the migration itself, like the features will take benefit from the Kubernetes API brings a great value. So they were not reluctant because they saw the benefits from using it from day one.
Okay. Now we've got a question from Roberto about pros and cons between Trivy and Snyk. Well, clearly Brian and I are slightly biased here, but I think we can say that the Snyk is not just a container image scanner like Trivy is. It's had a much wider set of tools for scanning your third-party open source packages and doing SAS scanning using the Snyk code functionality and scanning your IAC. And the aim is really to present all of that inside one platform. But these both are freely available to use. So I think you need to find the thing that's right for your particular environment. So we are a bit over now. Sam, should we take one more? We'll get one more question and then wrap things up.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we had a question from Samuel. Do you use Flux CD to do canary deployments? And if so, how do you manage the traffic split?
Yes, I'll answer that one. As we said, we are just at the beginning of the cloud native journey. But Flagger, it's an open source project developed by Weaveworks. We are considering it in our roadmap. But we have some other priorities before that one.
Fantastic, Brian. We've reached the end of the show.
Yeah, I think we reached the end. In the meantime, Ismael posted the GitLab URL, so feel free to click on it. And of course, we will publish that with the videos that will come on shortly on the YouTube channel. So again, I want to thank everybody for the great speeches today. I want to thank CNCF France, Paris, to help us out with this one, and other communities that helped us out were of course the DevSecOps community, the Virtual Jug, and Fujay.io, who are helping us throughout this whole road trip. Tomorrow we will be back, and then we will be in my country. Then we will be in the orange lighted country of the Netherlands, and I will ask Matt a few questions, and hopefully he can answer a few more correctly than today. I will not make it too hard on you, I promise you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. So one more shameless plug as well. Tomorrow and Thursday are the days for Kubernetes Community Days UK, 2 days of fantastic talks on all things CNCF ecosystem. I've put the link in the chat, so please do also pop in and join us there. I will be hosting Kubernetes Community Days as well as hosting this fantastic roadshow. So if you got bored of seeing my face, then obviously don't come to that. But
did we forget anything, Sam?
No, not at all. Just we'll see everyone tomorrow, hopefully in the Netherlands. And then off to Germany, and we'll end in the Nordics. If anyone does have any more questions, obviously all our speakers are available on Twitter and LinkedIn and Smoke Signals. But I will get this video up and live on YouTube soon, so you can rewatch and share and send to your colleagues and put the English translation on, and all the other fun things. But a huge thank you again to our speakers.
All right, thank you. And for the folks that are already in tomorrow, see you tomorrow.
Au revoir.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.